Are you normally up this early, Steve?
Yes. Yeah.
Same. I have kids, so I can't sleep in.
Yeah. Mine are old enough, but I'm just up.
Got you. Got you.
Hello, everyone. We have some attendees. We'll just wait a few minutes for a few more people to join. All right, guys, why don't we get going here? We've got about 20 or so people on the call. My name is Steve Shpilsky. I am the CEO of EB-5 Healthcare. With me today, we have Dr. Khawar Siddique. He is the CEO of Docs Health. And we have Phuong Le from KLDP. I'm sure many of you know Phuong in the immigration law firm. We've got a very interesting topic today. We'll keep this dialogue fairly casual, and the focus of the conversation today will be what the hell just happened last week. I know this has been a very interesting week with a lot of questions, uncertainty, a lot of rhetoric, but Phuong is going to do a very good job of distilling what just happened, what to do now, and what the future holds. Before we get into it, this webinar is sponsored by EB-5 Healthcare and Docs Health. Dr. Siddique is a spine surgeon, and he's building a $145 million spine and orthopedic surgical hospital in Los Angeles, California, in a high unemployment area. We just kicked off the fundraise and obviously have had a lot of inquiries the past week. Our project is under construction, fully funded, and slated to be completed in the summer of 2026. And Dr. Siddique and his partner have invested over $40 million of their own cash into the project. So it's a very healthy project and very prime time for a deal like this. Let me play a brief video about the project. It'll only take 1 minute, and then we could get into the technical aspects of what happened last week.
This is our first building, and it is where our outpatient office and surgery center and physical therapy are. We control the entire patient experience. So the patient comes to us, you see us in our office, they have surgery in our surgery center, which is here. If they need an overnight stay, they go to our hospital where they can get their much bigger surgery done there. The final missing piece was the hospital. We had a great opportunity in 2019 to by a pre-existing physician-owned hospital. This is a unique opportunity. And the reason is because that in the US, there's a moratorium on physician-owned hospitals. So we saw this pre-existing hospital and we had to jump at it. The idea is that this hospital is going to be similar to a boutique hotel. So when patients walk in, they won't know that they're checking into a hospital. As you can see, it's an active construction site. At its peak, we're going to have about 100 construction workers here on any given time. I'm happy to announce that construction is on time and on budget and is projected to finish in July of 2026.
All right, everyone. That'll be as much of the shameless plugs that we'll have today about the project. I'll leave my contact information on the screen towards the end of the webinar. Before we get into Phuong, Dr. Siddique, why don't you give a brief introduction about yourself, your background? I know you're also an immigrant to the US, so I think that could be helpful for people, but why don't you take the stage for a few minutes?
Good morning, everybody. Well, it's morning where we are at. It's exciting to have everybody participate. As Steve mentioned, I'm the CEO of Docs Health. We have been in practice for 20 years in Los Angeles. We are a group of over 40 spine and orthopedic surgeons and pain management doctors. And what we've done is that we have consolidated all the care that a patient may need, the patient experience, under one roof. So we control the outpatient office, MRI, CT, imaging, surgery center, and the hospital experience. And to top it off, we own all of the real estate as well. So the idea is that we wanted to build a specialty hospital that we, the physician owners, can use to improve healthcare in the US. And we have already done that. For instance, our infection rate after surgery is 0.1%. The statewide average in California is 1.4%. So we have a 14x better postoperative infection rate than any other hospital in California. In addition to that, our readmission rates, our morbidity and mortality rates after surgery are much better than the California and US average. And the best part is that we do everything at about half the price of Cedars-Sinai, USC, UCLA. So what we wanted to do was that we wanted to build this new hospital because we need more space, we need more ORs, and we need more resources to do more care, spine and orthopedic and other surgery in Los Angeles. This project is our baby. It's our bread and butter. It's a facility that we, the surgeons, are going to use. And in addition to the over 40 doctors that are owners of this hospital, we have many others that are waiting to come and participate and use our hospital once it is open. As Steve mentioned, or as the video mentioned, the other thing I'm proud of is that we're on time, on budget. You know, it's a 29-month construction project. We're almost halfway done with it. We have all of the risks of this project have been removed. We've done all the $40 million equity raise. We have the debt financing, the construction loan from the hospital. We have an amazing contractor named Swinnerton, an amazing architect named Cunningham. And the best part is that all of our licenses and material and the employees are pre-existing. So without exaggeration, you know, there is no significant risk to this project. What we're trying to do, as Steve's mentioning, is that we want to use this EB-5 money, the $20 million EB-5 money, to take out some of our construction debt. So we're excited that you guys are participating, and I'm here for any questions that you may have. And if you are in the LA area, call us, and I'll be happy to give you a tour. Thank you.
Wonderful, Dr. Siddique. Thank you. The facility is phenomenal. I get my surgeries done there. I've had my knee and my hip done. I'm young but active, and it is. I mean, to me, it's a miracle what these guys can do, and the level of care and the results, they speak for themselves. So. Again, we'll get into the immigration. I'm sure if there's some simple medical questions, Dr. Siddique could give a little quick advice too on spine, back, knees, anything. He's great. But without further ado, why don't we why don't we hand it off to Phuong? A lot of you know him from a famous WhatsApp group and a lot of just very straightforward comments. Phuong, what just happened?
I mean, I was more interested in the teledoc component of this webinar, and who cares what I have to say, right? But no, I mean, so I see a lot of people here. I mean, I've been friends and I've been working with Steve for probably over a decade now. I see a lot of our current and prospective clients here too. So, welcome you all. I think first and foremost, I think the most important thing is I want all of us to take a breath. I do think that we're all going to be okay. Um, so what happened was basically, I think this is some story time as well. So I think I've told some of you already, but last Tuesday, I and many regional center stakeholders were actually in Washington, D.C. We met with the Senate, we met with the House of Representatives to discuss, this new EB-5 RIA that we have right now, the one that runs through 2027. Um, it was on balance an incredibly positive conversation. It wasn't like what happened before, where when we were discussing extending EB-5, we got we had pushback before. Some people wanted to cancel it. By and large, every single senator or congressperson knew about EB-5. The reception was positive. Um, the walkaway conversation was that they were on board with extending it. Then at the end of the day, we turn on the TV because someone told us to, and we see Trump announcing the elimination of the program. Right? So, long story short, we honestly don't think it's going to happen. As of right now, I think it's kind of in line with what Trump typically does, right? Where he makes a bombastic announcement, um, really attention getting and everything else. Right now, the details are very scant. It's basically invest $5 million. They say you have to be thoroughly vetted, but who knows what that means. Come in here and supposedly you will get a fast track to U.S. citizenship, and you also get a fast track to not paying any worldwide taxes as well. So right now, I think that's the gist of the program that he's proposing.
Wonderful. And there's no further details on, is it permanent residency? Is it an investment? Is it a gift? I mean, do we know any more details about what is this 5 million, or are people just expected to wire this money to the government and it's just you're buying some form of residency for $5 million? What do we know about that?
I think on the outset, so it's an interesting conversation when you see this unfolding in Washington D.C., right? Because that number that he's proposing, the $5 trillion, also happens to be the same number that he's pushing for tax cuts. So they conveniently add up, right? So we think that there's some meta or there's a bigger picture game here. But the reality is this. Um, and obviously it's a fluid situation, but we do think that do we think that there's a possibility of the EB-5 program being eliminated? Basically 0%. So from the outset, everyone here who's worried, everyone here who is concerned about whether their case will be okay, the future case will be okay, we're basically going to go on record and say, you guys will all be fine. I'm not worried about that. There's a billion other things happening every single day that you guys could be worried about besides your EB-5 case. So long as we're working on it right now, we filed your case, you guys will 100% be okay. There's also, you have to understand that if he is going to pass this EB-5, this not EB-5, let's just say his Trump gold card, I know Trump said he's going to do it within 2 weeks. It's not going to happen in 2 weeks. It just doesn't work that way. This is the equivalent of your CEO, who is the ideas guy, who throws things out and leaves the rest of his people to figure things out. Bold thinking, but not enough details, right? For example, if you are going to do this, there are no forms to even fill out right now. That's a long process, right? Setting up an agency, setting up a new program is a painful, long process. If you've been involved with legislation at all, it's a painful, long process with lots of fights, with lots of compromise, with lots of drafting, and that's why, as of right now, we know that it's just not. It's nowhere near close to being done. As far as we know, the first major time that he might even be able to propose this is when they're during the budget reconciliation process, which I believe is this summer, Steve, if I'm not mistaken. So that's when Congress can potentially put in language to authorize this $5 million program. But even if it's in there, it's going to be, we believe, fully believe, an add-on to the EB-5 program, not elimination of it.
Got it. So I know in the initial comments on day one on Tuesday, the idea was this is going to replace EB-5. And then the following day, there was some pullback where this is going to be just a parallel additional option to EB-5 once I think everyone went back and said, wait a second, EB-5 isn't all fraud. There's a lot of good projects out there. There's hospitals and hotels and skilled nursing facilities and schools being built. But to give people ease, let's assume this gold card happens or it doesn't happen. It's going to take a long time, and it's a very different price point. $5 million is not $800,000, and a $5 million gift to the U.S. government is also not an $800,000 investment with the expectation of getting back your money. So those are first and foremost two very different things going on here. But just to give people some ease, practically speaking, what would have to happen to eliminate the EB-5 program as it stands today before it is set to sunset at the end of 2026?
Sure. Long story short, he has to get almost everybody, every single Republican congressman on his side, right? Only so the EB-5 program that we have right now, the RIA, is 100% a creation of Congress. Um, and only Congress can get rid of the program as well. So at the end of the day, the US is still a system of checks and balances. Some of those checks and balances are obviously louder than others, but at the end of the day, one party or one of the branches, such as the presidential branch, cannot just unilaterally get rid of the EB-5 program. Um, from our sources in Congress, from what we've heard so far, the realistic possibility of them eliminating EB-5 is almost zero. Obviously, things can change and everything else, but there's almost no desire, no push. If you're involved with the 2022 reauthorization at all, you understand what a big fight that was, how drained a lot of people were. This is the last thing they want to do. Even when we were discussing reauthorization, they were interested, but this was not going to be a conversation they were going to have to 2026. Um, I actually think that in a weird ironic way, Trump announcing the elimination of EB-5 might actually long term help us out, because what that basically has done is force everybody to have this conversation about what the new EB-5 bill will look like, right? Instead of 2026, those conversations are actually happening now. Another reason why that I think that realistically, EB-5 is not going to get eliminated is, so the knock before was that EB-5 would just fund luxury real estate. Luxury real estate in the big metros, another sexy, hotel or mixed use development or whatnot, that there was not useful projects, useful infrastructure for the U.S. economy. This time when we came there, we not only did we tell them that's obviously not true, we gave real life examples, right? We gave examples of hospitals coming up in urban areas where there was just not enough hospitals. We give examples of VA hospitals, of student housing, or charter school projects, of manufacturing facilities. I think all those things kind of hit home that, wow, these are really transformative projects. There's no desire from our sense, from talking to Congress, that there's no point in eliminating it. If Trump wants his gold card program, like Steve said, and I wholly agree, that would be an add-on program. They almost have very different purposes, right? Many of you folks who have invested your family's hard-earned money into this EB-5 program, I think you should take heart. You should be proud that you are helping transform economies. You are helping create real world jobs, right? Like, these are real projects you're investing in. The Trump program is different. It's almost, in a weird way, fundraising to pay down our national debt, which is creative. But again, it's almost like, so it's almost similar to other citizenship by investment programs that they sell around the world. where you basically make a straight donation and you get nothing back in return. My sense is unless you really see the benefits of no worldwide taxation, I can't see the pull for people investing in that sort of program being very big.
Yeah, and I could tell you the the House of Representatives, so this is the part of Congress that represents the individual smaller districts across the US. The first thing that we all did as an industry is we get in touch with our local representative and we send them a list of all of the EB-5 projects within their districts.
Right.
And we say, hey, look at all of this investment that's being brought in into your voter base. And if you're in Congress, you want to get reelected again. And the last thing you want to do is pull a program that's creating jobs or spurring the economy within your local district, even if you are a Republican, because there's not much you can do if you don't get reelected. So um, the system, while obviously imperfect in the United States, does work. It works in it's not a country where someone says this is the rule, and then tomorrow a dictator shows up and says this is what my rule is now, and everything changes. This is the main reason of why so many of us immigrated, our families immigrated to the U.S. is to avoid just that type of thing. And the beautiful thing about, even someone like President Trump, who does make bold statements, the ideas are interesting, but they're ideas and they start the conversation, they don't end the conversation. So we've just started a conversation. And what I think is important, and this may be interesting, is there's always discussion about what is the value or what should be the investment amount for an EB-5 category visa. And what the conversation has likely started is $800,000 the right amount, and should it be a little bit more the next go around? So I think this is maybe one of the main outcomes that we'll see after 2026 is potentially an increase or maybe some changes to the program. Again, we don't know that, but I think that is something he very clearly said, that the value of a green card is much more than what the investment amount is today. So with that, Phuong, what are you advising both the projects that you're representing today and the investors that have already submitted and the ones that are considering making an EB-5 investment, let's say in the next 3 to 6 months? What are the discussions with the regional centers and individual investors?
Sure, sure. Our firm released a response statement to this already, and we have another webinar today where we'll go in depth in those issues. But long story short, stay the course. Stay the course, right? And I say this to both our projects and also our investors. Those of you who have filed already your case and everything else, you guys have nothing to worry about. In the end, the RIA is still the law. You have grandfathering to protect you. Even if somehow the EB-5 program disappears tomorrow, which it won't, your case is 100% protected. Your case was guaranteed to be adjudicated under the RIA as it is today, and you will get your green cards, right? For the projects who have received EB-5 money, the program is not going to disappear. But even if not, there is still essentially an EB-5 loan, a construction loan in place to finish the project, right? So, uh, it in the end, like it's still going to be business as usual. It just doesn't simply disappear like that. I think the other thing that you kind of have to remember is that aside from attorneys such as ourselves or project folks such as Steve and Dr. Siddique, uh, Trump's own friends and his own donors also use EB-5. I know for a fact that some of them are contacting him directly, discuss like, there's no need to eliminate it, right? So this is the thing: when you have billions of dollars that are going in and out, it's very hard to simply just wipe the slate. It just doesn't work that way, especially when you have projects well underway, right? So in a weird way, if it's almost what I've always told people is if you are the only one in trouble, I could understand your fear, right? But when you have lots of people in trouble and some of those people are very well connected, then your fear should be like lessened, for obvious reasons. Um, I know for a fact that one of the first things that people did, so obviously you want to go in full court PR press. You want to have a list of regional centers. You want to have a list of states, rural infrastructure, whatever else that to show them, look, this is transformative. This is what they're doing. And all that is fine and good, and all that is very effective. But the other thing you want, though, and what's already happening is people who have direct connections to the president or to high-ranking members of Congress who are saying, look, this is why I donated to you. This is what we're using it for. This is how it affects us. I guarantee you those voices will be heard. And so, besides, people like us who are discussing it, besides the grassroots movements, you also have people going directly to them. And for all these reasons, I think the possibility of it being eliminated, just on a very common sense level, I'm willing to take the bet that it's not going to happen.
Yeah. In fact, what we're seeing is a lot of projects are trying to even launch quicker than before because the expectation is people, the current projects are going to have extra demand just in terms of people. We know what we're dealing with today. This is the known. We know the program is in existence today. We know the rules today. We know the playing field today. We know the timing today. We know the amount today. We can see the projects today. So we see today, and that's what we know. What's going to happen, a year and a half from now? We don't know. We know not much will change in the next year because to change the program is nearly impossible, as Phuong mentioned. So the positive is that the projects that you're looking at, whether it's our project or other projects, it's a good time now. So do your due diligence, look at the deals carefully, make sure that they are financially sound. The owners have invested a lot of equity. They're under construction. You have to be comfortable with the type of real estate or business that it is. This is what investors should be doing. They should be selecting projects that make sense to them and their needs and deal with what we know today, the EB-5 program, and be confident that our government, our Congress people, immigration lawyers, lobbyists are going to ensure that at the very least, nothing changes within the next year. We have to remember Trump is a real estate guy, first and foremost. This is his bread and butter.
His family has used EB-5. Let's not forget that too.
Jared Kushner has used EB-5. Steve Witkoff, one of the largest developers in the United States, is in Trump's cabinet. He's the head of the special envoy to the Middle East, and they're very close friends. He's used hundreds of millions of dollars of EB-5 proceeds for his projects throughout the United States. So I'm sure the very next day when Trump announced this, he got a couple text messages or calls from these very influential billionaires saying, hey, you know what you said about that EB-5 thing? If you want to do a gold card thing, that's good PR. Go ahead and do it, but don't get rid of this EB-5 thing. It really does help create the jobs and build amazing real estate, hospitals, hotels, everything that we mentioned. So I think we're in a good position now to kind of go strong with the program. And I think the only concern from an investor's perspective is selecting a project, because the ones that are here today will likely sell out a little quicker than they did a week ago. And there'll be new good projects, of course, but they'll be new. So again, deal with what we know today. We know that there's good product out there today, and that would be my advice.
And Steve, that's an important point that needs to be emphasized, that these projects are doing something that is needed in the US. In my example, a hospital, as we all know, there's a significant need for not just doctors and nurses, but also the infrastructure, hospitals. The COVID was one piece of evidence as to why that's necessary. As was true in many other countries, there was a significant need for more hospital beds in the US during the time of COVID. And what that did was that ramped up the investment in that infrastructure. And that's part of the reason, that's one of the reasons why we wanted to build this hospital, is because there's a huge need in our area for this type of hospital and healthcare investment.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I have Dr. Siddique on speed dial, but to get quality physicians, even in the US, you sometimes have to wait longer than people would like, because there's just not enough doctors and nurses. I mean, that's another big problem. We just need in facilities. So all of the above, the demand, our population lives longer. It tends to be healthy, but these spine and orthopedic procedures, you can't avoid them. You could be the healthiest person in the world, and you grow old and your knees grow old, and you just need I almost call it like a tune-up. So it's a really interesting medical procedure, and very much needed. Phuong, is there anything that you wanted to kind of close with, and then we can open it up? I've got the chat open for some questions if people wanted to ask questions about the Gold Card, the current EB-5 program, the Docs Health Hospital project, or any simple medical questions, if appropriate enough to ask and answer. Dr. Siddique can do that with the appropriate disclaimer. But why don't we see if there's anyone in the chat room with questions, type them in. But Phuong, with that, you could also maybe give some closing
I'll give
remarks.
some overall just umbrella advice, because that's typically what I do. And I see some questions from Kita and Eduardo, and we'll address those as well. But I think so. Those of you who have talked to me know that when my general philosophy, and when you make an investment, when you make a big decision, I think it's always in your best interest to be measured, right? I don't, in general, I don't like to be rushed. I don't like to just jump headfirst into things, especially when investing a large sum of money. So I think, um, in terms of project selection, your EB-5 process, not only do you stay the course, but put yourself in a situation to make good decisions. Uh, your source of funds, obviously, we've always said do that part first. So then, at the very least, what I will say that is though, so we've always said do your source of funds, basically get it ready, get your money ready, so when you're in a position to buy, you can move quickly. What I would add on to that, though, because we see this playing out in real life, is that a lot of projects that are available right now, people are moving faster than what we anticipate because of fear, because of uncertainty, right? So if you are interested in a project, at the very least, reach out to them, let them know. Get like a soft hold, get some sort of like funding agreement timeline in place, so that you know that your slot is held. That way, they know you have interest. Don't just assume that it'll be open. It doesn't mean you have to make a decision right away. And I'm sure like you still talk to me or Nero about what to do next, but that's just my general philosophy there. In terms of some of this other stuff, so the question about reconciliation process, right? So yes, so if you wanted to introduce a new bill or some sort of new law, it could be either standalone legislation, which is what the EB-5 RIA is, or there are certain congressional processes and procedures where you can see, the colloquial term is almost like you're sneaking in a new law into it, right? But the budget reconciliation process, if he was really motivated to do so and he had enough votes, Trump could potentially slip in the new, um, I guess the new category to investment in immigration, right? This $5 million Trump gold card, he would slip into there, and then perhaps Congress could say, "We'll figure out the procedures later." But if he were to do it, it'd be during that process.
Wonderful. I'll address some of the questions related to the project. There's a question if we're offering financing for the EB-5 investment. At the time, we don't offer a loan or financing for the EB-5 investment, but what we do is we are offering a payment plan. So with as little as a $50,000 initial investment, that is enough to get your I-526E submitted. And then what we're offering is a 6-month payment plan on the balance. So that allows you to, if we're the project that you like, you can select it. You can actually file our 526E, get your spot in line as soon as possible, get your slot in the project as soon as possible. And then we have a 6-month window where we could do a payment plan throughout that time. So it's a very favorable option for people that are either needing to finalize their source of funds, make some final financial decisions with themselves or their family, selling assets, going into a retirement account, getting other sort of loans. But we do have a 6-month, and Phuong has done this structure several times with other projects to do a payment plan that is permissible and has been accepted by USCIS.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of ways you can call it, right? Partial investments, payment plan, or whatever else. But the way I see it is just flexibility. Um, Again, I think life is about building good options for yourself, right? So, what it really does is it achieves the goal of filing your case as soon as possible, getting your priority date, getting your place in line, and giving some flexibility about how to fill out the rest of your investment. Those of you who have talked to me know that I think that in today's world, very rarely does anyone have $800,000, right? So you have to figure out what am I going to liquidate? What am I going to borrow from? Do I borrow now or later on when rates are perhaps a little bit better? Um, a payment plan, as Steve said, allows you to do all those things, right? You don't have to make all these decisions now. You should have a general idea of where the $800,000 total is going to come from. It's just this gives you flexibility of how to structure it overall. So yeah, we have done literally hundreds, if not thousands, of these cases since 2015 in terms of partial investments. All our cases have been approved. I'm not worried about getting these approved in the future. Um, of course, we have a backlog question and a retrogression question. My answer there is still the same, right? Um, the term backlog or retrogression for any of our EB2 or H1B clients is traumatic. It gives you PTSD because the word backlog makes you like it gives you nightmares about like basically you are going to be stuck in this 15-20 year line, right? With no end in sight, with no security, with no job security. If there's layoffs, then you could potentially be screwed. Any backlog in EB5, if it happens at all this year, which I think there's a chance that it might not even happen, um, it's not going to be the same. EB5 backlogs in general are going to be much shorter. That's just our firm's general opinion. And also, the other main thing that you have to understand is like to me, a successful EB5 investment guarantees a few things, right? It guarantees that you should never have to worry about your employment again. You should never have to worry about your travel plans. You should never have to worry about whether your kids can go to school, whether you can work for someone or take a break. At the end of the day, so long as you file before any sort of backlog, you will receive your EAD, you will receive a travel document. Almost everybody's receiving those for 5 year terms right now. And in the event that there is any kind of backlog, you can send those indefinitely. So that's why it's like I've always said, pick a project right now that you feel comfortable with, that you think can finish on time, and repay you. Because even in the event that there's a backlog, there's a very good chance that a number of you may be paid back already, right? And at that point, um, the green card is just a waiting game. So it's not entirely all that bad.
Wonderful. And Phuong, there was well, we've got a master class in immigration on the Zoom here. Any insight on this? We spoke a little about it, but the IIUSA litigation and lawsuit.
Sure. And obviously, there's only so much we could say there too. But I think originally, I think the way it was is rolled out, I think opened themselves up to I think a lot of misunderstanding, a lot of attacks and whatnot. But I think since then they've clarified a lot of their positions and a lot of their how they feel about things, and I'm glad they did. Um, I think part of the overall fear was you heard a lot of rumor mongering, right? That what they really wanted to do was roll this back to pre-RIA sustainment, to lock up the money for 7, 10+ years and everything else. Now that we see the outlines of the joint settlement memo and the court updates and everything else, we know basically that there's uh, three main outlines of the proposed sustainment settlement. One is that any if there is a sort of sustainment period, they are capping it at 45 years if possible, right? Which in all honesty is not crazy because the vast majority of projects typically historically have paid back in 4 or 5 years. And the reason why that happens, so it doesn't mean that you can't pay back earlier than that, right? But the reason why is that uh, most real estate projects, the time it takes to actually create a project, to take it to market, to go get financing in place, to put all these things together, stabilize, and then refinance to pay back investors. I think as Steve will tell you, that process is not usually 4 or 5 plus years. Um, the other thing that they talked about, so in terms of a max, that's what they're proposing, 4 to 5 years, right? Um, the other thing they've also made clear is they are perfectly okay with decoupling the investment and immigration timelines. Again, which I think is a very important point and a huge win for any EB-5 investor. It shows that also that everyone's aligned on this issue too. The reason why this is important is it basically effectively separates the investment timeline and the immigration timelines. Just because you're not done with your green card process doesn't mean you can't get paid back. That's why it's so important. It also lessens the possibility of essentially redeployment, right? If the project is done, it's within the 4 or 5 years, and have money available, they could pay you back. So that's why I think it's so critical. Um, the last thing is, and this is a shifting timeline, is that the last thing that they've thrown out there is if there is a settlement, they want it to apply prospectively, not retroactively. What this basically means is that if there are any changes to the sustainment period or how it's calculated, it's only going to be applied to investors moving forward. So all of you who have already filed or who are due to file this month are more or less protected, basically. Um, right now, because I know the next question is going to be when do we expect this or any sort of clarity for this to happen? They say settlement date, but there's a possibility that USCIS may ask, like, well, like, let us do some sort of rulemaking. Right now, the next answer is tentatively set to be 30 days from February 27th, but there's a chance it could be extended a little bit more too. It just depends on the final parameters. But again, this is why it's important where if you are interested in EB-5 or you're going to do EB-5, this is what I mean by stay the course, right? Like, finish the process, go get it done and everything else instead of like waiting for another development, waiting for another advancement, right? Um, when things are popular, when things are busy, it typically doesn't get any easier. It's going to get more complicated sometimes. So I think the best thing you can do to protect yourselves is if you are interested, if you are doing EB-5, complete your investment, finish your case.
Yeah. And on the project and just the real estate side, as Fung pointed out, um, it's very, very challenging for a real estate project to pay back within 2 years. Um, a simple rule of thumb is at a minimum, it takes 2 years to build. And if a owner or developer um, tries to refinance or sell before the cash flow from the real estate is stabilized, it's usually not a very smart decision. And for stabilization to occur, the average is 3 years. You have to open, you have a year of ramp up, second year you're getting better, and then third year you're kind of hitting you're kind of topped out at your main growth for real estate. And that is when it is the opportune time to either sell or most likely in a lot of strong commercial real estate where you will refinance with another senior lender who doesn't like financing construction. They like financing much safer assets with cash flow in place. They will give you a much lower interest rate, and it'll be less demanding on the owners than the construction loan, which is more expensive and shorter in term. So every owner wants to get their construction loan, and in our case, the EB-5 loan out, because this money is not cheap anymore. There will be cheaper money once the project opens. So the sustainment period question, while we understand is important to people, practically speaking, institutional quality real estate projects are going to take a minimum of 4 years to even get to a point where they can repay. No matter what the documents say, the documents can say, we're going to pay you back in 2 years. Investors should always ask, okay, how? What's going to happen? Is there a financial story to this making sense that we will get paid back in 2 years? And unless there's some very good reasons that's supported by financial data, third-party valuations, and just general market common sense, you could say whatever you want, but you have to understand what practically is going to happen. And in our case, we do have a very good story of why this project has a strong likelihood of being repaid in about 4 years.
And I can, as the owner, I can make that commitment. As Steve mentioned, we already have all the debt financing. This EB-5 money is going to take out other debt that we have that is more expensive. But once we're open, I want to take out this EB-5 money and replace it with cheaper debt. So our timing is this. It's another 1.5 years of construction. And then it's going to be another year to stabilize the hospital, meaning do a lot of cases, et cetera. So we're 2.5 years from today. So as soon as 3 years, but more probable at 4 years from today, I'm going to refinance all 100 million. And I'm going to refinance it with much cheaper debt through banks. And as Steve mentioned, it's easier to get a loan from a hospital that's already up and running rather than a construction project that we are doing now. So 3 years, maybe 3 years from now, but probably 4 years from now, it's in my best interest to pay back this entire $20 million EB-5 money because I'm going to find much cheaper debt at a much lower rate. So I'm going to be very enthusiastic to pay all you guys back. And the great part is that, as I mentioned before, since our hospital construction is already undergoing, we are a large medical group. We have all the licensing and permitting to run a hospital. We're going to get this hospital up and running very quick and pay you guys back.
Yeah. So with the sustainment period, again, similar. We know what we're dealing with today. Things may change, probably not in the next 30 days. They may change in the next 60 to 90 days. So for those of you that are thinking about the process, I think the first step is calling up Phuong and starting your source of funds documentation so that you are ready to go when you select a project, because it takes some time for Phuong to do the magic that him and his team does. It doesn't happen overnight. So that if you do get worried about a change in the rule of sustainment period and the lawsuit, you can make a decision with what we're dealing with today. Independent of that, we have to think rationally. Can the project repay, and when they will repay, and how and why? So I think that's very important. There's a question here on is the EB-5 regional center and hospital vertically integrated? No, not at all. This is how I like to do my projects, but I have no ownership interest in the hospital. I'm a patient. I have to disclose that, so I get my medical services there, but I have no economic interest or ownership in the hospital. I solely represent the EB-5 investors as a fiduciary. So if there is an issue with paying the interest rate, payback, financial situation, my interest, I am obligated through our offering and the SEC to represent my limited partners, my investors. I am your advocate, so it is in my interest to represent you. Dr. Siddique interest is to provide good quality patient care. He's a physician first and foremost. So reputationally speaking, it is never good, even if a physician makes a poor financial decision and it gets out that physicians are trying to hurt investors in their real estate. He's taking a significant amount of risk because the trust that physicians have is very important, whether it's you're trusting them obviously with your medical care or financially. If one of those two things fails, it's very detrimental to the medical practice. So no, we keep things separate. This is how I like to do things. We've seen many instances in the past where the EB-5 group is one and the same with the developer, and there's a huge conflict of interest, and that conflict of interest we've seen in a lot of cases hurt EB-5 investors. Here we have zero conflict at all. So you could rest assured that that's okay.
And the converse is true as well. I and my doctors have no interest or receive any fees from Steve's EB-5 company.
Yeah. I think we have one final question about the project, and I also I wanted to say I have my contact information on here. We have our website, my phone number. I'm on the WhatsApp groups. We could schedule a Zoom call so we can go into far more details about the project, the financial metrics, and the returns. But someone asked if there's a loan. There is not a loan option, but we are offering a payment plan with $50,000 down and the ability to submit your I-526E with that down payment. And then we have a 6-month payment plan. And then I don't want to make this an investor promotion call. We can talk about returns for investors. We do have some options for different types of preferred returns for investors, depending on your situation, that we can offer. And I'm happy to get into the specific annual return for investors individually and go through the options there. Let me see if there's anything else. I think we've done a nice job keeping it under an hour. No medical questions, guys. I think you get some free
I would be
medical
asking medical
advice.
questions. Who are the EB-5 questions? That's what I would be doing.
Right. It's usually this guy is getting medical questions a lot. But again, my contact information is up there. Happy to discuss any questions about the project, EB-5 in general. I've been doing this now for almost 15 years. I've typically focused on hotel projects. I still own hotels. I teach hotel development at the University of Southern California. As an investor, I do not love hotels now. I've made this shift into something special, unique in healthcare. I feel like this is a much safer option if it were my family investing. These are the types of things that I would look towards. And there really aren't any hospitals available to invest in that I'm aware of from an EB-5 perspective, and ones that are in Los Angeles with 13 million people. Do EB-5 investors get a discount in the new surgery center? Dr. Siddique, we do have an offer for investors of some annual telehealth calls and visits, but maybe talk about how we can take care of some of the EB-5 investors in a special way.
Well, myself and the other doctors in my group, we always take care of our friends and family. And so if you guys are investors in our project, you are now friends and family. So the answer is yes.
Yeah, we'll get you Dr. Siddique's special private line where you can text him in the middle of the night if you got stung by a bee or your finger hurts. I mean, he gets it all. When you're a doctor, it doesn't matter what the medical condition is. It's they assume you know everything, but he really is very helpful. Has helped a lot of people that I know, and they help a lot of the athletes and celebrities in Los Angeles. I think he's very modest and doesn't even realize the level of care that they offer. And being in Los Angeles, there's a lot of prominent people that do come to their medical group for various services, and you as investors will kind of be in that same sort of special treatment category as well. So yes, there will definitely be a special extra treatment. You'll get a Docs Health VIP card that you can show.
Cool.
Wonderful, guys.
Thank you for spending your morning or your afternoon with us, and I'm sure there'll be more questions. Steve, I'm sure you have more questions. Doctor, thank you for joining us. Thank you, everybody.
All right, everyone. You guys have a good day or evening. Thank you so much.